You're listening to Afterlight Fictions. At last, the workday had finally ended, and Charlie's nightly walk was almost due. 10 o'clock at night, that is when he preferred to walk. It was cooler in the evening, especially during the summer, and everyone who needed to walk a dog for their last evening stroll, well, they were already finished and back inside, mostly. That meant Charlie could have the evening to himself, all alone. Just the sounds of a few chatty geese in the nearby pond, as well as the trickle of the fountain hitting the top of the water. He changed into his evening walking clothes and grabbed his apartment key to lock the door on the way out. He paused and leaned back in to grab his flashlight that was still sitting on the stand that rested near the door. And off he went. The pond had a worn-out gravel trail that circled halfway around it before deciding to curve behind some of the buildings. This was all away from the main street where everyone would come and go with their cars. On the right side of the trail, beyond the water, was nothing but dense trees. On the left, a few scattered buildings with people getting ready for bed. As Charlie made his way toward the gravel path, he couldn't help but notice the occasional flicker of lightning in the distance. Thunder could barely be heard, so he estimated that there was at least time for a quick version of his normal walk. He cut through the grass to get to the trail faster, and the sound of the fountain grew closer. Charlie noted the empty bench that overlooked the pond, thinking that it might be a good place to rest on his way back and enjoy some of the light shows in the sky. But first was the task at hand. He focused on what little he could see on the ground, avoiding any uneven surfaces that might roll an ankle. The crunch of his feet became almost meditative, and for a moment, all he could hear was his own footsteps. As Charlie fell deeper into his trance, he was startled back into reality by the flicker of motion in his peripheral vision. He lurched back, uncertain of what just happened, and grabbed his flashlight. A small rabbit was shining in the center of the light, still munching on its evening dinner. At first, Charlie was annoyed that he had been frightened, but then a slow smile appeared as the silliness of it all sank in. He started walking once more, and the rabbit took off toward the tree line. Once he finished the length of the gravel path, Charlie worked his way to the main street that cut through the middle of the apartments. He turned to the right and stayed near the center island of the trees. This divided the two roads leading in and out of the complex. After reaching the end of his destination, he stopped at his mailbox to see if anything had been delivered. No, nothing yet. Charlie looked up at the sky again and noticed that the storm clouds seemed to be getting a little further away. They hadn't quite gone in the direction he anticipated. Maybe enjoying a moment on the bench was an option after all. He could watch the remainder of the storm as it left his area. With that in mind, he continued back toward the pond. This time he stayed on the road and enjoyed a nice deep breath of fresh air as the sounds of the summer night began to play their little melodies. Upon arriving closer to the bench, Charlie noticed someone was already sitting there. Oh, that's odd, thought Charlie. I don't remember seeing anyone out here. Maybe if I walk by once or twice, that will be enough to annoy them and they'll leave. Charlie passed by once, coming closer to the pond again, and noted that it was an older gentleman, maybe in his late 60s. He wore a stylish hat and overall seemed to be dressed fairly formal for sitting outside on such an evening as this. Charlie looked around to see if he had gone far enough down to the one end of the road before turning back. As he started toward the man on the bench and looked his way, he paused, unsure why. There was almost an instinctual level of fear preventing him from moving his legs any further, but it wasn't the man on the bench that was frightening him. Something else was wrong. Charlie remained still, trying to pinpoint his source for concern. It was at this moment a beam of light shot through the darkness and struck the other man. Without warning or time to comprehend, the body of the man on the bench began to bend and contort in such an odd manner that it was hard to understand what was actually occurring. It was all too quick for the horror of it all to sink in. It was now that Charlie also realized there were no sounds, no fountain, no geese, no crickets. Everything was silent. He looked more closely at the fountain, and it almost looked like the droplets of water were suspended in the air. And the geese weren't even moving, let alone making sounds. What was happening? Charlie's eye was caught by the motion of the man trailing into the beam of light, and the body disappeared into a larger silhouette that rested against the sky. No clear shape could be seen, just darkness, where the stars were blotted out by some object. The light seemed to retract, and the silhouette, it was now slowly moving. Charlie's eyes were finally able to see some kind of outline of the thing in the sky. It looked as if the belly of the object were starting to point towards some far-off destination. And just like that, the silhouette was gone. Charlie stood there for a moment, finally remembering to breathe. His breaths were starting to increase and deepen as he realized what he had just seen. He looked back toward the fountain to confirm what he had witnessed earlier, and it was as if someone had been reading his mind, because as quick as he had the thought, all of the night sounds were turned back on.